Something clever to say tonight. Let's get right to it.
Yeah. You know, last night at this time we talked about how big storms were interesting, especially to meteorologists. And, you know, again, this one is going to be just incredibly interesting because this is going to be an incredibly large storm. By the time this is all said and done, indications are continuing to look like right now that this will be one of the biggest storms in history to ever move up the eastern seaboard. We're talking barometer readings, if you're into barometer readings, of about 28.30 inches by the time it makes it up into the Hudson Valley of New York. Might as well be a hurricane. We'll deal with that in a second, but first of all, let's talk about what's outside right now. Still, we're in the calm before the storm. Literally, the winds are calm right now. The clouds are starting to thicken, 13 degrees, and of course no wind chill because the winds are calm. Humidity 50%, and the barometer 30.26, and it's holding steady. What it does next is it starts to fall off rapidly. Our high temperature today, 24, after a low last night of 0. Sunrise tomorrow morning at 6:21. It'll set at 6:08. And earlier today at Hancock Airport, a trace of snow, 132.8 inches so far for the season. Well, it's still a fairly quiet night across central New York. Temperatures now ranging from some sub-zero readings in some of the coldest parts of the North Country to you know, pretty much the single numbers and teens elsewhere. Our TV3 Weather Network observer tonight is Betsy Hughes in Fairhaven, and Betsy tells me it's partly cloudy, 13 degrees, got up to 22 for a high today, and a couple of degrees for a low last night. Elsewhere now, Jeff Reed in Cortland says it's 19 degrees there, one of the milder spots. We're looking at Christidanlick and Auburn at 15 degrees, Penn Yan 18 degrees, and here are your cold spots up in the North Country, Watertown, Old Forge, both 6 degrees below zero. Well, once again, here's the rather impressive U.S. satellite shots, and these are taken over the past 12 to 18 hours. And it's still very impressive, even though the storm is still more than 1,000 miles away from us. At noontime today, the storm is down here in the Gulf of Mexico. It headed on up towards the northeast. And at this hour, it's starting to swirl around over the Florida Panhandle, right around Pensacola. And as I mentioned on First Weather, right now, Birmingham, Alabama, right about in there, they're getting heavy snow, a quarter of a mile visibility at 32 degrees. So that's big news for them, too. Well, this storm is going to continue heading out to the northeast, and here's what we see over the weekend. Here's where the storm should be in another couple of hours over parts of Alabama, heading on into Georgia. Now, this storm is going to continue heading out towards the northeast, and by tomorrow evening at this time, it'll probably be around, let's say, Trenton, New Jersey, central New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, somewhere around there. And it's going to really be winding up. Now, from there, tomorrow night on into Sunday, the track becomes a little bit more difficult to accurately predict. But the way it looks right now is it should track up almost right through the Hudson Valley or just to the right-hand side of the Hudson Valley, maybe through Vermont. And it's almost the track that the blizzard of '66 took. So plenty of wind with that, too. Going to be a lot of blowing and drifting of snow, not to mention a whole lot of snow. Here's what I'm still looking for right now. Most of central northern New England, most of eastern central New York, down into central PA, 15 to 20 inches or more of snow blown about by those strong easterly winds. Forecast overnight, thickening clouds and cold, lows averaging around 10 degrees. Tomorrow, light snow should arrive during the morning hours, say mid to late morning. Could be 2 to 5 inches by evening. Some southern sections even more than that by evening. And a high of 24, and the winds increase during the afternoon. Blizzard conditions tomorrow night. Got the blizzard warning in effect. Heavy snow, blowing and drifting. Temperature in the teens. And then here's a 6-day outlook. On Sunday, the snow starts to actually let up a bit as the storm starts to actually head up into Quebec, and still very windy with blowing and drifting, 19 degrees. And Monday, we're looking at a few leftover snow showers off the lake in 20. And, of course, once again, weather updates will be here all weekend, every hour.
I know you'll be tracking it. Thanks, Wayne.
Right. Thank you, Wayne. I'll be watching, too. I hope I'll be watching. The Orange Men win in New York tonight. Adam's in for Dave with the highlights next.
And Central Square's playoff win right here.
Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs.
Eastern part of the United States, you can see that March is indeed going out like a lion. A major winter storm is dumping snow and bringing high winds and rains from Florida to the northeast. 10 inches of snow has already fallen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and more is expected. Florida is reporting the worst weather since Hurricane Andrew struck the area. The National Weather Service says the storm's central pressure is equal to a Category 2 or 3 hurricane. In the deep south, Birmingham, Alabama reports a record 18 inches of snow. Atlanta is now blanketed by several inches of snow, too. And Georgia's Governor Zell Miller has declared a state of emergency. Parts of the state, meanwhile, are getting wind gusts of up to 80 miles an hour, and flooding is reported along the Gulf Coast. The Weather Service says that tornadoes hit 15 counties in Florida early today. Governor Lawton Child says at least 10 people have been killed. The extent of the damage in parts of Florida is still unclear.
One of our biggest concerns continues to be the amount of live power lines that are down. This particular area is somewhat rural in nature, and a lot of dirt roads leading to homes. A lot of those roads are blocked off with different trees and debris. We got crews out with chainsaws, frankly, trying to clear those roads so that our deputies can get out and check on the well-being of the residents in those areas.
From the south to the northeast, everybody is calling this the storm of the century. It is causing near whiteout conditions from one area to the other. It was a virtual whiteout from Georgia to Maine. The storm, caused by a collision of Arctic air with a moist, warm system from the Gulf, blanketed the entire East Coast with what could be the worst storm of the century. Tens of thousands of customers lost power as heavy winds and snow snapped power lines. Legions of travelers were stranded at airports. Highways were closed by drifting and blowing snow. Even Washington was brought to a standstill, and the Smithsonian institutions were closed. Beach towns along the East Coast reported wind gusts of up to 109 miles an hour. In Florida, tornadoes and gale-force winds skipped through the northern part of the state, blowing roofs off homes and pulling down power lines, cutting electricity to more than 500,000 homes. At least 5 people were killed in the state. 3 of them, including a 6-year-old girl, died in Chiefland near Gainesville after a possible tornado lifted up and smashed the family's mobile home. Along Florida's west coast, flooding was reported near Tampa. Some affluent communities were evacuated voluntarily ahead of 9-foot waves expected to crash ashore later in the day. Forecasters are saying by the time the storm moves out to sea late Saturday, it could have left behind up to 2 feet of snow in some areas. The weather is causing cancellations and delays at many airports around the United States. No flights are going either into or out of any of the airports in the New York metro. That includes JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia, or in the Washington, D.C. area, including Dulles National and Baltimore Washington International Airport. Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport, too, is also closed. In eastern cities where airports are open, there are, of course, major delays. Stay tuned to Headline News for the latest information on today's big storm. Indian police are reportedly questioning a suspect in connection with the series of bombs that killed more than 300 people in Bombay yesterday. The United News of India says the suspect gave the name of 6 accomplices in the attacks, but Bombay's police chief is denying that report. Other news agencies say about 1,100 people were hurt in the blast. India's Prime Minister Narasimha Rao has
tracing a fascinating path along the automobile's ever-changing evolution. Ironically, it was here among